Good afternoon, all. Thank you so much for joining me this lovely sunny afternoon. And for those of you not sat in the garden in a gin and tonic, I appreciate you even more. Those who are, well done on the multitasking. So to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me, I'm Dominique Butters. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Blackfinch down in the Southwest. The next hour, we're going to be looking at inheritance tax, specifically business relief, and certain the planning opportunities. Now, this is post-budget because there were a lot of changes, as you probably saw. So important information. This is purely for advisors, regulated individuals. It's not to be shared with retail clients. However, if there's something you'd like, do let me know, because as long as we put it through compliance and have the right risk warnings on it, that would be fine. So always let me know. Risk, you've got an extra page these days, and that's because the Adapt IHT portfolio, so the capital preservation type business relief plans, and also EIS, bless the FCA, they have now lumped those in with cryptocurrency. So you'll notice on the brochures, it says, do not invest your capital unless you're prepared to lose all of it. Thanks for your help. Considering our Adapt IHT portfolio has been going for 11 years and we've never, ever, ever had a single negative period, it's a bit annoying. And then you look at EIS and you can have up to 94% tax relief for the right client. But nonetheless, those risk warnings are there. Hence, we now have another risk page. On risks, especially on the IHT portfolio, if you ever get clients who do get scared of the risk warnings, you just want to explain, well, this is why the FCA look at it. And it's basically, they're not listed on a stock market. You're investing, it looks like in a single company, etc. It shouldn't be liquid. Do let me know, because I have actually prepared an email, as if written by an advisor, to send to clients just to make them understand and what we're doing to de-risk it from that situation. EIS, of course, is quite straightforward because you just show them all the tax relief they're going to be benefiting from. So actually work out how much risk are they really taking with their capital. But I'm always here to help on that. So learning outcomes, of course, this is CPD qualifying. So we need our learning outcomes. So we're going to look at understand how to effectively use the new £1 million business relief allowance. Don't forget, when I say business relief, that also encompasses agricultural relief now as well for your farmers. And we'll also look at structuring wills. So this is where we're going to bring you in, speaking to those solicitor contacts as well. We're also going to look at trust planning, because actually just business relief, just trust, yeah, you can do that, but actually they can interact beautifully together for the perfect solution for your clients. And then we're going to look at the pension changes, and we're going to go, okay, you've probably thought of some ideas, and hopefully I've got some new ones to add into the mix for you. For those of you who aren't familiar with Blackfinch, a little bit about us. We're inspired by Charles Darwin and the Darwin's finches. So we're very much about adapting, evolving, because if you adapt and evolve, you're going to thrive. And that's what we look to do. We're always changing and always looking at the landscape. For instance, when consumer duty came in, we looked at our products and went, do you know what, actually, we can shave some costs off here. And so we did for clients. Got over 30 years investment track record, and we invest across a multitude of areas. So we have things like renewable, we have property development lending, we have solar, wind, forest now. We also do, if you like, normal investments. We offer both an MPS proposition and also now, very exciting, a tailored portfolio service. We have over 850 million in funds under management. I think actually that's 900 now. Over 140 people across the UK. And we're really committed to responsible investing as well. Old language, ESG, and we are a signatory to that. So what are our solutions? Well, right across the tax efficient space. So we have the Adapt IHT. That's the one that targets 3 to 5% per annum, never had a negative period. Don't get me wrong, is as dull as ditch water, but it does the job for clients. We then have AIM, Not dull at all, pretty awful and pretty volatile at the moment, but obviously next year it could be up 50%. That is AIM for you. So we also have AIM portfolios, both an income and a growth version as well. Our corporate management service is actually based on our Adapt IHT service. And this is for companies who have perhaps surplus capital. They're not using it, but they won't take it out. They say, well, I don't know if I'm going to buy another business, another property. They won't take it out. It's normally their comfort blanket. Trouble is with surplus capital in companies, it doesn't qualify for business relief. They think it does. It doesn't. It comes under what we call accepted assets. And basically, if it's not being used as part of a trade, they do not get the IHT relief. So basically, this product invests, is not in the markets, it's just in a loan portfolio. Again, they can set their maximum loan to value. They can be very, very cautious with it. But it does qualify for business relief. And indeed, because we don't set up a subsidiary company, it can also qualify for business asset disposal relief as well. And that's targeting 4 to 6% per annum returns, net of charges. We also have a VCT. We're not this, by the way, this presentation is going to be much more generic. This isn't actually about products. So this is the only bit you're going to find out about our products actually. So do come to me later when you want to know more detail. But the Blackfinch Spring VCT, award-winning. We won Best VCT of the Year last year. Our team, who run both the VCT and our EISs, also won Team of the Year. And we were the best performing last year in top quartile again this year. So really good. We also have our EISs, as I've mentioned. So we have 2 now, both run by our ventures teams. One specifically on energy transition, because as you can imagine, transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables, the amount of tech that can actually take place and help aid that is huge. Now, people say to me, Dominique, you're just going on the bandwagon? Yeah, we absolutely are, because we don't want to miss that bandwagon because it's massive opportunity. So that one's specifically on there. So those clients who are really interested in the environment, those sorts of clients, they will love it. Other people like it because it's an extra diversifier. Ventures EIS, all about tech. And we do basically invest across the whole portfolio of companies, minimum of 10 portfolio companies in there. So you're nicely diversified. And as I mentioned previously, we also have our asset management side as well. Do get in contact if you're reviewing your CIP and think, well, actually, let's see what they can do. So I think you'd be quite surprised. So let's have a look at business relief. So if we compare that with gifts and trusts and life assurance, you're going to see, well, gifts and trusts, we know to be fully exempt, you need to live for 7 years. Yes, you might get taper relief if you're giving over your nil rate bands, but not many people make such large gifts. And anyway, it's only the excess over the nil rate band. Life assurance, of course, is immediate. Business relief takes 2 years, but of course it's 2 years and at the time of death, because many clients think, oh, business relief, that's a bit too good to be true. 2 years, full access, full control. It isn't 2 years, it's 2 years, and you've got to be holding it at the time of death. With gifts and trusts, obviously they lose access to that capital. If they're making outright gift, of course, they lose control as well. Trusts are good from a control point of view. Life assurance, well, sometimes clients can feel this can constrain their lifestyle because they're paying out those premiums, they have less to spend. Business relief, of course, it is just a simple investment, so they retain access and control. Gifts and trust, well, it is a trust, it can be complex, although we're going to come on to how you might use business relief with a trust, and that can be incredibly simple. Life assurance, of course, not mitigation, you're just paying the bill, but it's very effective. Gifts and trusts can be expensive to set up, not necessarily, especially if it's an outright gift. Life assurance, deemed expensive by clients, but you and I both know it's incredibly good value if they actually keep it to the end. They just feel like, I don't want to spend out this money. Business relief are always going to have dealing fees, management fees, initial fees, those sorts of things. So that doesn't come for free either. Gifts and trusts, obviously permanent, you've given it. Life assurance, you can cancel. Business relief, it's an investment, so can be encashed. Gifts and trusts, really important here, and this is why it can work really well with business relief. It is an asset reduction. Now, asset reduction, why is that important? Is because it is deducted from the calculation of the residence nil rate band. Life assurance, obviously, it's just asset mitigation. You're getting the money ready. Business relief, though, you're just converting an investment or an asset. You've always got access to it, which is why it's always counted for the calculation of the residence nil rate band, unless you put it in trust later on, which we will look at. IHT statistics, you've probably seen these so many times now, basically since the budget. Oh boy, are people going to be paying more IHT. From my point of view, though, and hopefully from yours, you're thinking, yeah, but what a fantastic opportunity. Because how many more estates are going to be liable to IHT? Plenty. That means there's lots of opportunity to go and speak to a lot more clients now. So, business relief, a recap. What's the saying? Well, inheritance tax is payable at a rate of 40%. The business relief, you need to hold it for minimum 2 years and at the time of death. But what's happening from April 26, all AIM companies, I say all AIM, actually only around about 50% of companies listed on AIM actually qualify for business relief in the first place. Common misconception is that all companies listed on AIM qualify. No, they don't. Only about half. And those half now, they will only get 50% relief. But, it's still half price. So they're still only paying half the price that they would have done if they didn't have it in AIM. Shares in unquoted companies, so if we're talking generically, those are the ones that are offered by people like ourselves, the Adapt IHT, other companies out there. They're the targeting the capital preservation ones. They're the ones that are unquoted companies. They're private companies, not listed on AIM. So what's changed? Well, previously it was unlimited. You could have an unlimited amount in these companies and it would be free of IHT once you've held it for 2 years and at the time of death. That's now limited. Now limited to the first million per person. Irrespective of provider, because they'll just get all lumped in together on the IHT form. First million, 40% IHT saving. After that, so it is still unlimited, but you'll be paying 20%. So first million, completely free of IHT. Any excess over $1 million, 20%. So what can you do? Well, you could gift your shares. So if you gifted your shares after 7 years, it's no longer counted in the £1 million threshold. So we're going to come to opportunities and what you need to do with accountants later on and solicitors, but it could well be seeing those really big companies who is worth more than $1 million. So if you've actually got a client that actually holds multiple BR qualifying investments, okay, the IHT is going to be spread amongst all of them. Probably doesn't really matter, and hopefully you've got your money invested in companies like us who can pay any IHT liability out of the plan without you having to wait for probate. Now, what comes under business relief? Well, basically, EIS, those ones who are in unquoted companies, that qualifies as part of your million, and the IHT unquoted. The AIM has a separate thing altogether. It's unlimited, but it's the flat 20% across the whole amount. If you hold EISs that are invested in AIM shares, then they're going to get the AIM relief, not the normal EIS ones that, for instance, Blackfinch invest into. So just be careful on those. Don't think all EISs are going to get the 100% relief. So, first of all, if you've got people in AIM shares, now they are probably sitting on a horrible, horrible loss and they're thinking, oh Lord, what do I do? Because come April 26, it's going to go down to 20%. Do you know what? It's really hard to tell. If I was Mystic Meg, well, I'd be retired by now and I'd be very wealthy. But what you could think about, if you sell the AIM shares, and put it into an unquoted, the Adapt IHT targeting 3 to 5% per annum, to be honest, they're never going to recover the loss you're crystallising. So you've got to toy with the idea, do we wait and hope the AIM market to recover? But if you transfer after April 26, you are definitely going to have to do the 2 years again. Now, there's actually debate amongst the industry on, do you have to do 2 years now if you transfer? So if you transfer an AIM portfolio now, okay, if they die before April 26, no issue, okay, 40%. They die after April 26. The worry is, if you look at current legislation, which bear in mind was nothing to do with these new rules, under current legislation, it states, well, what did you transfer to get the replacement property relief? Okay, so you replaced AIM. Now, AIM was at 40% before April 26. You went into another 40% IHT exempt, as that you'd think you'd get replacement property relief. However, as legislation is written at the moment, it actually says at the date of death, what were you invested in? What's the rate now at the date of death? So actually, many companies are now saying, do you know what? We think you're going to have to redo the whole 2 years, even if you transfer from AIM now. Personally, I would be suggesting if they did transfer from AIM, don't make another 2 years. You'd actually ask HMRC, put it on the form, say, look, I transferred, because I don't think for a minute we're going to get new rules or, understandable on this point. So I think it's worth probably just giving it a go and just saying, yeah, it's coming under replacement property relief and hoping for the best, basically, if they don't do the 2 years. As I mentioned, from April 26, they're definitely going to have to do it. So, the new business relief, agricultural relief. Now, the biggie here, which you might not have picked up on, and I don't know why they've done it, but the government has stated it will not be transferable on death, which means your clients are going to have to use it on first death or they'll lose it. That is not ideal. So, things to consider. If you have clients with very large business relief investments, i.e. over $1 million, they're held jointly, split them into 2. Now, hopefully you've got them people like us, and we'll do that completely free of charge for you. If you've got it with other providers and they're going to charge you, just say, well, Blackfinch wouldn't charge me, so I don't think you should. I'm sure Consumer Duty will be in there somewhere. But you need to split it into 2 names, okay, because they need to give away the first one on first death. Because otherwise, joint one, it's owned solely by that second person on death. First million, 40% saving. The excess is now going to be at 20%. Then, of course, their wills could undo all your good work. Do they have mirror wills? In which case, husband dies everything to the wife, wife does everything to him. It's going to mess it up again, because again, they're going to inherit. They've got over $1 million, first million, 40%, second million, 20%. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to give that money away, that first million potentially, to use up that allowance. But there aren't that many people who are happy to give away £1 million on first death, especially if it is actually a business or a farm, because they're probably going to want to keep control. So if they don't want to give it away, they could set up a discretionary will trust. So only coming to effect on death. So this is where it's good to speak to your solicitors. Set up a discretionary will trust, which is basically effectively giving that money away and using up that allowance. Doesn't use up nil rate bands, of course, just using up that business relief allowance. And the beauty of the discretionary will trust is the remaining spouse could, if they wanted to, be the sole trustee, and they're already written in as a potential beneficiary in the trust. So they're in complete control, got complete access, complete benefit, and unless they want to give benefit to their children or beneficiaries before their death, don't have to. So that's the benefit of discretionary will trust. You've used the allowance, but the other spouses retain complete control and access and benefit to them. Nothing is given away. So, what do accountants need to do? Well, quite simply, refer all their clients to you whose business is worth more than 1 million. Why 1 million? Well, if you think about it, a lot of businesses are owned solely by one person. Do they need to bring the spouse in? And they're immediately going, divorce, divorce. They're probably going to get half anyway, so you need to get them over that. But do they need to bring the spouse in as a shareholder? Okay. Someone said to me the other day, she said non-voting rights. She obviously didn't want her husband to have any voting rights. Yeah, you can do different classes as shareholder, but bring the spouse in because you've now got two £1 million allowances to use. Okay, so you've just saved them up to £200,000 in tax with that little simple piece of advice. And both accountants and solicitors can actually do that separating for you or adding on the shareholder. So you don't get involved with that, but you're the one, if you like, giving the advice. Now, what if the business is worth more than 2 million? Do they want to add children as shareholders? If they gift the shares directly to the kids, of course, it is a disposal for CGT purposes, so something to consider. However, if it's a business relief or an agricultural relief asset, you can use holdover relief, which means actually they don't pay any CGT at all. It's held over and transferred to the beneficiary. And basically, when they sell, they'll pay the CGT. Now, if they're working as part of the business or the farm, it could well be that they can use up their business asset disposal relief or entrepreneur's relief of their £1 million limit as well. So, you can actually have a double benefit if they do actually end up selling the business or farm before those people die. Downside, they're losing control, they lose access, and of course they lose the benefit on that gifted amount. And if it's an outright gift, divorce, bankruptcy, that's probably the biggie there, is a case of, well, you've now given your son a third of your business. Well, he gets divorced. Hold on, that's his asset. His ex-wife will probably want to have her share of that business. So it can cause all sorts of problems if it's an outright gift. And of course, they do need to live for 7 years for it to be fully IHT exempt. However, what about gifting it into a discretionary trust instead? So disposal of CGT purposes, but again, because it's a BRAR asset. By the way, to qualify as BRAR, they need to have held it for at least 2 years before doing this. Okay. They can use holdover relief once again. But of course, it also helps protect the money assets on divorce and bankruptcy because it's in a discretionary trust and no one is a nominated beneficiary. Of course, the settlor or trustees keep control. So really important sometimes if it is their actual business they're giving away. But you are putting it into a CLT now, so it's a chargeable lifetime transfer. However, as long as they've held that asset for at least 2 years, okay, before they transfer it in and before April 26, there's no entry charge. There's no 20% tax charge because you're investing an IHT exempt asset. Okay. But of course, again, they do need to live for the full 7 years to be fully IHT exempt. So what if they don't live the 7 years? Well, if they don't live the whole 7 years of making the gift or CLT, if it's still in an IHT exempt asset, i.e. it's still in the farm, it's still business assets, pre-April 26, no IHT payable. Post-April 26, the HMRC will look at, okay, who made this gift? Okay, Dad, to the soul. How much does Dad own? And if he already owns 1 million, okay, that trust, yeah, it's failed chargeable lifetime transfer, still in an IHT exempt asset, but over the 1 million, it'll have the 20% charge. If, however, personal assets and that gift only add up to 1 million, fine, that's just using up his 1 million allowance. But actually, the moral of the story is it's worth a go. Because actually, as long as they don't mind giving away the asset, they live for 7 years, fingers crossed, fallen out of the equation. If they don't live for 7 years, well, they're in exactly the same tax situation of the 20% over the million. So it could be worth a go. Now, what if you've got those people who are over 2 million, don't want to involve children? That seems like an absolute nightmare. Brilliant opportunity to do some life cover, of course, to cover the 20% tax. Just remember, though, of course, IHT is paid by the shareholder, not the company. So, proposed pension changes. Wow. Okay, this one's a little devil, isn't it? So, first of all, it's now be part of the estate for IHT, as you know. Doesn't look like they're changing that. The consultation, it seems, is over, and the consultation was only about how it's going to be paid, really. But we'll see. We've seen them do U-turns before. Look at the winter fuel payment, so you don't know. But at the moment, it is as it is, so let's look at some opportunities. We also believe it is going to be added to the calculation for the residence nil rate band as well. So it's like a triple whammy. Not great. So just bear that in mind when you're doing your IHT calculations. But what can be done? Well, actually lots. And this is where you really add value as an advisor in my mind. But of course, nothing needs to be done prior to April 27. But these are fantastic talking points, and it's a great way of getting really wealthy people sat in front of you. Those people with those massive pensions, which they were going to leave for the children. Well, if they've got a big pension they're going to leave to the children, that must mean they're really wealthy elsewhere as well. Just the sorts of clients you want to be speaking to. Now, I'm already sure you've thought about annuities, gifting after tax, the income. Because it's a natural income, it would come under normal expenditure of income rule. So it would be IHT free immediately, no 7-year rule. They could take pension drawdown. Same principle, isn't it? Gift the income, normal expenditure of income rule. Or if you've got relatively small estates, when I say small, maybe up to say £1 million. Let's say they've got a property worth 400,000, cash, investments, ISAs, GIA, making up the million, and they've got a £500,000 pension pot over here. You could just think, well, let's get clever with the asset allocation here. Let's assume that £500,000 pension now is going to use up your nil rate bands with your property, and let's invest your investments. Could give them away. Probably feel like they can't afford to, or put it into a BR plan, live for 2 years, no IHT, but they've still got full access, full control, and you haven't actually touched the pension and actually caused any income tax liability at all. So for your smaller ones, that might well work well just by jiggling about, if you like, who's and what is going to use up those allowances. But I work for a tax-efficient investment provider, and obviously this is what I've been doing for the last 17 years. So when this happened in the budget, my first ideas went to how can my products help me in my own situation? So let's have a look at tax-efficient investments. I call these my pick and mix ideas because they're not going to be right for every client in every year, but I think you will. Oh, this client like that one like that. Or next year I'll do that bit. And I think you'll actually like a combination of all these things. But again, what I'm trying to do here is just give you some ideas and excite clients and actually excite accountants. So, first of all, my first thought is, well, let's take the 25% tax-free cash, invest that into a BR plan, preferably the Blackfinch one, pop it into the BR plan, 2 years later, no IHT. See, actually, for your clients with a hop, skip and a jump, you've got 25% of it IHT free again in just 2 years. And of course, don't forget, business relief, only one spouse has to live for the 2 years. So husband does this, he dies after 18 months, it can be transferred to the wife, and as long as she lives the other 6 months, it's done its 2 years. So again, just bear that in mind. It's not that one person having to do the 2 years. Now, that's 25%. But what about the rest of it? Well, of course, taking additional withdrawals, realistically, probably it's going to be at 40% or a big majority, because if they could afford to leave their pension till death, the kids, they've probably got a good income elsewhere. So ideally, what you're going to do is take a lump out each year, stagger those payments to ideally not trigger 45% tax. But what do you do with the withdrawals? Well, my first idea was you could invest it into an EIS, Enterprise Investment Scheme. You get your 30% income tax relief, so effective tax rate 10%. Now, I think we'll find a lot of people say, well, I don't want 10% tax. That's all right. Not keen on the 40%. But actually, again, these are wealthy clients. They've probably got money elsewhere. Premium, bonds, national savings, the building society. Okay, look, give me a bit of that, pop a bit more in, and we can completely negate your income tax liability. Why wouldn't we do that? Of course, with an EIS, you also qualify for business relief. So after 2 years, no IHT. So what you've actually done is taken a lump out the pension, offset the tax, IHT relievable again in 2 years. Not bad. The problem with EIS is one, risk. However, to be honest with you, if you've got clients with a big pension fund they were going to leave till death, okay, they're the sorts of clients who've probably taken risk all of their lives. Do you know what? They'll probably like a bit of EIS as part of a portfolio and get quite excited about the underlying companies. Often, though, the big objection with an EIS is actually the lack of liquidity, because we don't know when we're going to actually sell these companies or they're going to get bought. And we say, finger in the air, 4 to 7 years, but we can never guarantee it. And clients don't like that. They like to know when they're going to get their money back. But actually, these clients, if they were going to leave their pension till death, actually lack of liquidity, not knowing when you can get the money back, is actually irrelevant for them. But I'm still a realist, and I do realise if they've got £1 million pension fund, you're probably not going to put it all into an EIS, because it is high risk unless they've got 20 million elsewhere, and compliance probably wouldn't let you anyway. But it is an option, maybe part of their portfolio or for 1 year. So my second idea, I think this one's going to be really, really, really popular. So this one, take your withdrawal, pop it into a VCT. Again, you get your 30% tax free, pop a bit more in, completely negate the tax liability. Now, downside of a VCT, it doesn't give you the IHT relief. But what it does do is provide tax-free dividends. And we're paying 5% per annum. If you're quick, if you're in by, I think it's Monday, 23rd, we'll be paying out another dividend in August. So we're paying out a regular 5% per annum. Well, these could be given away. They don't need them, because it's a normal normal expenditure of income rule again. Or you could use those dividends to pay for a whole of life policy to cover the IHT liability on the rest of the pension. Now, again, normal expenditure out of income, so you're not doing a pet every time you make those premiums for the whole of life. But of course, most people do not like paying for life assurance, because they say, oh, it's really expensive. But of course, in their head, they're thinking they're going to reduce their monthly income. But as somebody said to me yesterday, well, no, it's self-funding, isn't it? I liked that. I thought, yes, it is. I'm going to use that phrase. It's self-funding. It's the VCT or the pension that's actually paying for the life policy. It's not affecting their lifestyle whatsoever. So another thought. And why I think VCTs are going to be more popular, they're deemed much lower risk. They're much more diversified. You can sell the shares after 5 years, ideally reinvest and get another 30% tax relief and take another lump out of the pension. And my next slide shows you this beautifully. We always used to look at this slide when we were taking dividends from a company director, say, we'll take out money each year for 5 years. In year 6, we'll take out the first one, reinvest it in year 6. You do have to wait 6 months or put it into a different VCT. So you're not allowed to bed and breakfast now. But you've got this wonderful conveyor belt. And that's what they can do. But what do they start looking a bit peaky? So the 5 years have got through and you're going, so you had a little heart attack or a mini stroke. Perhaps we now need to start looking at your IHT. So when their health deteriorates, as those VCTs mature, you could then pop it into BR, 2 years, no IHT. So it's a longer IHT play, but really good for your younger clients. My last idea on pensions, or for those over 75 now, I really hope that Rachel Reeves changes this, because this one's nasty, and that's the double taxation. So they're going to get hit by 40% IHT, and then the remainder, the children, when they encash it, that's going to be at their highest marginal rate tax. So again, probably 45% tax potentially. So double whammy, really nasty. This might not happen, but again, it's a talking point. So let's assume, worst case scenario, you do no other tax planning with them whatsoever. So you don't do VCT, you don't do EIS, you're thinking it's going to be on a wing and a prayer you'd even live 2 years. Okay. You take the whole pension. Now, I know you think I'm completely mad, so you're going to have to stick with me here. Let's say it's £1 million. You take the whole million. Let's assume, worst case scenario, it's all at 45% tax. You're down to 550. You pop the 550 into a BR investment and hope they live for 2 years. With a spouse, one of them. The difference is the children could be inheriting 550,000 as opposed to 330,000 if they did nothing. The mass is identical. So if they give it a go, don't give it a go. So what are they risking? Fees this big? And obviously at that point, do involve the children, because it's the children taking the risk really. And they're going to go, well, do you want to take a risk on mum, dad living for 2 years? Okay. Flip it, right, I do. I'll follow them around with the defibrillator going, keep going, keep going. They're going to get the best care and attention for those 2 years, I can assure you. But it might be worth a go. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. So what do accountants need to do? Well, I've already said they need to refer all of their companies worth more than £1 million. Now they also need to refer to you any of their clients who have a good or sizable pension. Now you're going to choose the amount here, so it depends on how many clients you already look after. Do you have capacity to take on that many? So you're going to start probably at the biggest first. And easy questions for clients, for accountants to ask their clients. What plans do you have for your pension? Don't know. Referring to you. Is it being left for the kids? Not needed? Yeah. Referring to you. Do you still want to be putting as much into your pension now with the new EIS rule, new rules coming in? What new rules? Referring to you. Or, no, stupid pensions, I wish I hadn't done it now. Referring to you. Are you worried about the pension changes coming? All of these are such easy questions to ask clients and get that referral straight across to you. You need to be seeing everyone with a half decent sized pension and saying, right, what plans have you got? What are you going to do with it? And they'll say, well, aren't you going to tell me that? Just say, well, look, my clients aren't worried about the pension change. So I'll tell them to relax. I've got loads of ideas. They're not going to be paying IHT on it. Very little tax. If we can get away with it, we'll be paying no tax on it. Okay. Why are you going to do that? Okay. Well, when you're my client, I'll tell you, don't give away your intellectual property. Okay. You advisors are far too nice and do this too readily. No, just say, well, when you become my client, I'll tell you. And they might go, well, I don't need to do anything till April 27. Go, no, you're absolutely right. You don't. And feel free to come back to me in April 27. The only trouble is I can only look after a certain amount of people. And to be honest, I'm incredibly popular since the budget, and those spaces are going to fill up. So I can't guarantee I'll have space to look after you then. If, however, you want to have my advice and my guidance, why don't you do the pension transfer now, you become my client, and then we can talk about all your options. Get that pension as funds under management now. Don't wait for 2 years. Get them across now. And a lot of these businesses, you've come across them, I'm sure. It's very strange. They have massive pensions and they're just self-investing. They have no advisor, and all they're doing is the account says, oh, stick in your pension, stick in your pension. So they've stuck it in their pension. So they have no advisor and no advice. They are crying out for advice, and they can't do this sort of planning on their own. They're going to need your help. But what about younger clients? Well, they might not now want to put as much into a pension. Now, some of them you'll be saying, no, you do. You've only got $250,000 in. You've got a long way to go. Let's still put some in. But you might find those who've already got £1 million pension pot, well, actually, perhaps they don't. Is a VCT a potentially a good alternative for them? 30% income tax relief, only need to hold it for 5 years. Then, of course, they can reinvest and get another 30% tax relief. And if we're looking at those company directors, remember my slide? Take your dividend out, create the tax liability, offset it. Now, higher rate tax on a dividend is 33.75%, and we're only offsetting 30%. But I've not come across a company director yet who hasn't said, Dominique, I don't mind paying 3.75% tax. It was the 33.75 I wasn't so keen on, understandably. But of course, they can always pop a little bit more in, completely negate the tax liability. Do it each year for 5 years. When you take your dividend in year 6, we're going to reinvest that first VCT, of course, assuming no loss, no growth. Reinvest it, offset your dividend in year 6. So basically, when you take your dividend, that money's going in your back pocket, tax-free. Clients love it. And then, of course, in retirement, they can use the VCT tax relief to offset the tax paid on the pension withdrawals, as we looked at earlier. And this also comes on to those clients who've got $250,000 in their pension. Again, I'm not going to put any more in. You go, no, hold on. You do still need to be doing this. What's the point? I'll get tax relief on the way in, but I'm just going to get taxed on the way out. How about you get all the tax relief of the pension going in, it grows completely tax-free, and then I show you how we get it out tax-free as well. You've got the retention at that point. And again, all you're going to do is the VCT. So you can do the pension, do a VCT alongside, on it goes, and then the VCT is that conveyor belt. But it means that people are probably more interested in doing their pension still, knowing they've got an exit strategy later on. Solicitors. Well, we've already looked at wills. They need to be changed now. So again, go and speak to your solicitors. Those, especially the commercial department, those dealing with the businesses, you need to be seeing all of those. I saw a solicitor just recently over in East Devon. She was switched on. She knew about the discretionary will trust, etc. And I was talking about what we were doing. And she said, I don't suppose you could do a client seminar for us, could you? Yes, I can. So we've just booked it in for 24th September. So, solicitors now, the savvy ones realise there's a massive opportunity, but also they need to be giving this advice as well. But they're not comfortable in giving advice. Brilliant. A seminar is perfect. They can talk about the wills. I can talk about the allowances and how you use them. And the advisor can talk about what they do and the holistic planning and everything else that goes with it. So a brilliant time to get in front of your solicitors. If they're not that good, well, we're going to educate them so that when they have that client walk in the door, they know, hold on, that business is worth more than £1 million. I need to refer them over here to get this sorted. And you're going to refer back to them the new wills, tell them what they need to do, their powers of attorney, where they're going to do the share splits, all those sorts of things. So it's triggering more business for them as well. So with solicitors specifically, lunch and learn sessions are really popular because, believe it or not, if you don't deal with solicitors, they have to account for every single minute of their day. So even if they nip to the loo, they have to actually bill that to somebody, believe it or not. But they don't bill over lunchtime. So solicitors practices love doing CPD sessions over lunch because they're not losing any billable hours. The I like doing them as well, because if you have them on their premises, everyone comes down for the lunch. It's normally only some sandwiches. Generally, they pick up the tab themselves because they're so chuffed to get the session in. Everyone turns up on time. Nobody's had a problem with parking. Everyone's starving. So weirdly, nobody gets stuck on the phone and everyone turns up for this session. But it's a great way for them to get extra fees and know who and what good quality clients to refer to you. But always think what's in it for them and just remind them that they're going to need to be doing all these new wills. So mirror wills is just not going to cut it now for these business owners. And of course, don't forget, solicitors and accountants who own their own companies probably need your advice as well. So put yourself out there. Actually, do they need to add spouses? How do they need to actually be structuring their business? And if you get them as a client, oh, fantastic. Because then when they refer their clients to you, they're going, well, actually, I'm going to put you in touch with my advisor. They're really good. Can't get a better referral and recommendation than that. But how can I help and support you? Well, I'm always saying I'm a free resource. Now, when I say I'm a resource, I am down to 3 days a week because I'm a lazy devil now, but I have got white hair. It sort of looks blonde in this, which I'm really pleased about, but it's actually white. So rather than retiring, because I'm way too young to retire, I'm down to 3 days a week. So my diary is relatively limited. So Zooms and video conferences we can normally fit in really quite easily. If I need to take a day out of the diary, we do need to book that a few weeks in advance. But very happy to do accountant and solicitor sessions. As I said, either face-to-face or by video conference. I'm happy to do either. Also happy to come out on client meetings as well. Now, we're not regulated to give advice here at Blackfinch, so you won't find us pinching your business. I am there literally to talk about what we do, how it works. I can talk about legislation if people want to get really dull. But of course, I do know our propositions, our investments inside out and back to front with far more detail than you're ever going to, possibly know, because you have to know all of this and I only have to know this. So really happy to come out on client meetings with you if you'd find that useful. If not, I can prep you to the nth degree and then talk about, right, this might come as an objection and this is actually how we overcome it and this is how we're de-risking things, that sort of thing. Of course, I can also help phone, Zoom, Teams, however, on client scenarios. So you might, after this webinar, think, actually, I do have 2 or 3 clients I now need to speak to Dom on. Give me a ring, drop me an email, and we'll book some time in the diary and we'll go through them. And I am very honest, I'm going, you're not going to get that through compliance, or actually, okay, so to get this through compliance, what you need to do is build this picture and explain that. But I will tell you if without giving advice, obviously, because I'm not allowed to give advice, but I will tell you whether it's right or not. So, some people come to me and go, oh, I'm going to do an EIS. I'm going, do you know what? Actually, I think a VCT better in this situation, and vice versa. So I'll make sure I basically hold your hand through it, especially if you're new to these things. Also very happy to do team training. So you might have other advisors in your firm that you think could do with this sort of training, or even just things like the basics on business relief, the basics on VCTs and EISs, because I do realise I've come in at quite a high level and assumed quite a high level of knowledge already. So if you're thinking, well, some of this sounds interesting, but I don't know when I would use an EIS or a BCT anyway, or business relief. Again, I'm really happy to start at the beginning and do some beginner ones, if you like, and then build that knowledge up for you. And the same with power planners, because if they're doing your reports, there's nothing worse than them not understanding what you're trying to do. So again, really happy to go through with power planners. Right, well, why am I using an EIS? Or is to defer capital gains tax? Okay, then what happens? And then I can talk about how we look to mitigate it using future annual CGT allowances or using losses against it or hoping they die. CGT dies with them. And I can go through all of that sort of stuff. And this is not a product push. This is very much generic information, knowledge type training sessions for them. So as I said, I'm a free resource. Do use me. So learning outcomes. Understand how to effectively use the new 1 million business relief allowance, including structuring wills. We covered that. Although I have to share with you that when the budget came, obviously it blew my mind when, business relief, agricultural relief, AIM, all got attacked. And in that IHT simplification paper, there were the three things that the cross-party agreement said, don't touch. They're working really well for the economy. Do all this other stuff. And they do that. But that's beside the point. Once I got over it, I did actually think, do you know what? Having an allowance could actually work in our favour, i.e. us in the tax efficient space and you as an advisor. And it absolutely is true. Because I now have advisors going to their clients saying, right, Mr. and Mrs. Miggins, since the budget, you can now pass down up to £3 million tax-free to your children. They go, 3 million. How does that work? Well, you have your nil rate band of £325,000 each. You have your residence nil rate band of £175,000 each. That's £1 million between the two of you. And you now have a new £1 million business relief allowance each. And the brilliant thing is, now it's an allowance. It's not too good to be true. Because I don't know if you have had this, but lots of clients, you think they're really interested and then they don't go ahead. They go, oh, no, I've decided against it. And I think what it is, they think it's too good to be true. It's a little bit fishy. Unlimited sums, 2 years, I have full access, full control. This doesn't sound right. And so they just don't do it. Whereas now it's an official allowance, weirdly, people are doing it. And actually, don't be put off by those people who already own their business, own a farm, and they're over that million or 2 million mark. Because I went to see clients a couple of weeks before the budget, and I was doing my Mystic Meg impression. No, nothing's going to change with agricultural relief or business relief or AIM. No, all nonsense in the papers. Bet my house on it. So my Mystic Meg skills failing me miserably. And anyway, I was due to see them day after the budget. And we were looking to do £1 million of personal BR business. They already had 5 million of business assets. And I thought, oh, flipping heck, they're not going to do it now, are they? Because they're only going to get 20% relief. So I was really fed up. I drove all the way down to Cornwall and I was a bit grumpy. And I said, well, I got that wrong, didn't I? They laughed, went, yep. I said, yeah, it's obviously only 20% relief now on, over the million each then. Well, it's still half price. I went, yes, it is. Well, better than nothing, isn't it? And the son who was there went, yeah, still good saving. I was over the moon. I was so relieved because I thought they weren't going to bother. But actually the attitude was, well, still half price, isn't it? Yeah, it's still a saving. For those really wealthy clients, they're not giving anything up. They're not giving anything away. They're still saving 20% tax. So what else did we look at? Well, gaining insights into trust planning following the budget. So we looked at if they do have more than their million each, do they want to do some trust planning with excess? How do you do that effectively? They live for 7 years, potentially, no IHT. They don't live for 7 years, actually, they're in the same situation. And in fact, they could get taper relief as well if they're giving away large sums. So you're thinking, is it worth a go? They don't feel it's worth a go. Great opportunity to do some nice life cover with them. And then we looked at different options you might not have considered for the new pension rules coming in April 27. But as I said, it's a talking point at the moment. Nothing needs to be done. But in my mind, if you're talking about it, you're talking to sort of solutions to clients, or even glibly saying, don't worry about it. If it comes in it as is, I've got loads of ideas for you. We're going to make sure between us, you're not going to be paying all that tax. Okay, I'm going to reduce that, hopefully to nothing. Don't worry, I'm going to look after you. That gives your clients such peace of mind. And talk about justifying your fees as well. But also use it to get those people especially accountants, they know who they've been telling to chuck it into their pension all this time. Get hold of them. Do they have an advisor? And not being funny, do they have an advisor who actually has any idea about these sorts of things? Because if they don't, they just might not feel comfortable doing tax planning. Because don't forget, I think it's 83%, so I did 83 or 87, 83% of advisors have said they do not get involved with tax planning. So if you think about that, if they have 83% of the clients out there, you're going to want their top 10. So if they're not prepared to do tax planning, you are. Actually, that's quite an easy switch. And do you know what? They might actually be feel better about it as well, because if they don't want to get on board with doing tax planning with all these changes coming in, do you know what? Let them do all the simple stuff. You do the more complicated but bigger high net worth stuff. So just to reiterate, I'm here to support. Those are my contact details. Lovely picture of Georgia, who I'm sure most of you, well, certainly those who deal with me already, you'll have spoken to Georgia. She's my right-hand woman in the office. She basically does all the work that I don't know how to do or I don't want to do. She's an absolute blessing. So Georgia is there for you if you want illustrations, literature, CPD certificates, arrange a meeting. She runs my diary. When I try and do it, I tend to mess it up, as she keeps telling me. So she does all of that. I'm here, if you like, for the more technical things. So client meetings, accountant meetings, solicitor meetings. I'm here if you want to talk through cases. You know, I've been doing this for 17 years now in the tax vision space. So hopefully I know the answers to your questions. So I will now leave you in peace. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I hope you found that useful, and I hope you can actually get even bigger and better clients off the back of it. Many thanks.